What kind of ending was that? The series started at its peak with sharp social commentary, constant tension, and characters who felt genuinely alive. Every episode reinforced the feeling that we were watching something big, carefully crafted, layered with intention. But as it approached the finish line, that structure started to lose consistency. The ideas were still there, but the way they were handled felt rushed. Like the ending didn't receive the same care as the beginning. The mysterious sniper perfectly captures that frustration. From the start, she shows compassion by helping the player without having any obligation to do so. That wasn't a small gesture. It set her apart in an environment where almost no one acts without self-interest. Later, she manages to convince the frontman's second-in-command to delete his files from the computers. That felt like the first step toward a bigger turning point, a crack in the system. But when she burns another file later on, the action loses its impact because the entire island is destroyed shortly after. The chance to walk away with solid evidence, something that could confirm the existence of the games to the outside world, simply vanishes. It was a clear opportunity to expand the consequences of the story, to push the conflict beyond the island. Instead, everything gets wiped out along with the explosion. There's also the scene where she nearly takes her own life after watching Ji-hun sacrifice himself for the child. It's intense, painful, built to leave a mark. Emotionally, it works. Narratively, it leaves a gap. Throughout the season, it felt inevitable that she and the cop would cross paths on the island. The expectation was that they would combine what they knew, align their strategies, and try to bring the organization down from the inside. There was room for tension, for conflict, for an improvised plan. That connection never happens. The script hints at it, builds anticipation, but never delivers the confrontation that could have shifted the entire direction of the story. As for Ji-hun, his death isn't inconsistent. On the contrary, it's a conclusion that honors what the character has always represented. In a setting where survival demands cruelty, he chooses compassion. Any other competitor likely would have taken the predictable route to win. He doesn't. He chooses to protect the child, refusing to turn her into just another disposable piece for the VIP's entertainment. The message aligns with the show's long-standing social critique. Even inside a dehumanizing system, empathy can still exist. The issue isn't the decision itself, it's the execution. The scene drags longer than it should, loses intensity, and the impact that should have been devastating ends up diluted. His action also directly challenges the frontman's worldview. The frontman believes that under extreme pressure, everyone reveals their selfish nature. That, at the breaking point, any value will be abandoned for survival. Ji-hun's sacrifice dismantles that belief. He proves that not everyone gives in to self-preservation. Within the logic of the game, that represents a rupture. It's the flaw in the philosophy holding that entire competition together. Then comes the interrupted line, "We are not horses, we are human. Humans are," and silence. The comparison is deliberate. Horses run when they're pushed. They obey commands. They're used in bets without understanding what's happening. The game turns people into something similar. Competitors moving under pressure, manipulated by externally imposed rules. The difference is that humans have awareness and the ability to choose. But that choice isn't simple. Ji-hun witnessed greed, betrayal, and extreme violence. He also saw courage, solidarity, and sacrifice. The show poses an uncomfortable question. If both the creators of the game and its victims are human, what truly defines humanity? Is it compassion? Is it resisting instinct? Is it the ability to decide, even when everything pushes you the other way? The sentence remains unfinished because maybe there isn't a clean answer. The story itself shows that human beings are contradictory, capable of cruelty or generosity depending on the moment, capable of destroying or protecting. The word humanity doesn't automatically mean virtue. What truly separates someone, especially in that environment, are the choices made under pressure. And that's where the discussion stays open. If being human means having a choice, then the real question isn't what we are. It's what we decide to be when no one is watching and when everything feels lost. As for the other characters who made it to the final stretch, the intention is clear, to show that almost no compassion remained. Money became the only moral compass. The baby's life, completely innocent, was reduced to just another variable in the game. No one truly hesitated. No one genuinely tried to protect. Everyone was willing to betray, manipulate, and sacrifice whoever they had to in order to survive. And the old man, number 100, it's hard to accept the fate they gave him. After everything he did, after all the coldness and selfishness he displayed, his death felt too light. It lacked weight. It lacked consequences proportional to what he represented within the competition. Honestly, it would have been more interesting to see the shaman in the final instead of him. Even with all her manipulation and twisted mysticism used to her advantage, there was still a trace of distorted humanity in her. She wasn't good, but she was layered. In the end, the old man became little more than an empty symbol of greed. And then we get to player 120, possibly the most painful arc of the entire season. She was loyal when no one else was, honest when lying seemed like the easiest path, and the script chose to eliminate her abruptly, almost cruelly. Even wounded, it was completely possible to picture her in the final showdown. Maybe she wouldn't have survived the jump rope physically, but in the Squid Game itself, with the leadership she showed and the firmness in her decisions, she would have been a strong, strategic, emotionally powerful opponent. Many people question why she didn't leave when she found the exit, but the keys weren't hers alone. She wasn't going to abandon the elderly woman and the pregnant player to die trapped. That choice cost her life, but it made clear who she was until the very last second. In an environment designed to turn people into predators, she chose to protect. There's an even deeper weight to her character. Player 120 was a trans woman portrayed with respect. No caricature, no cheap jokes, no reducing her entire existence to her gender identity. She was a fully realized character, full of fear, insecurity, strength, and contradictions. Her identity wasn't the whole storyline. It was simply part of who she was, the way it should be. Her decision not to abandon the most vulnerable hits even harder when you remember that she understood what it means to be treated as disposable. That context makes her death even more bitter. She represented resistance, dignity, and the attempt to do the right thing in a place where doing the right thing almost always means losing. The performance carried enough depth to justify far more screen time. The final would have felt completely different with her standing there. The mother and son arc also leaves an uncomfortable feeling. From the beginning, it seemed obvious that playing separately was a mistake. Their lack of coordination cost them dearly. And when the mother strikes her son from behind to save the pregnant player, that moment isn't just about protecting the baby, it's also about protecting her son from a guilt he would never survive carrying. She knew he didn't have the emotional strength to live with killing an innocent person. Even so, their storyline needed a stronger resolution. Watching the mother die in front of him could have been a direct consequence of his earlier decision to stay in the games the previous season, ignoring her desperate plea. It would have been brutal, but narratively consistent. Amidst so many questionable choices, there is one element that genuinely works: the frontman delivering the prize money to Ji-hun's daughter. That moment reveals that he sees something in Ji-hun that he recognizes in himself, maybe who he once was. Honoring that final wish isn't redemption, but it's still human. And the dagger scene wasn't just a formality to wrap up the game. It was a test, a direct mirror of what Il-nam did years earlier, putting the final decision in the player's hands and watching whether he would give in. Il-nam did that to the frontman, and he failed. He allowed himself to be consumed and became part of the machine. The frontman tried to repeat that cycle with Ji-hun. He couldn't completely break him. Still, he spared him because he saw potential, someone who, under the right or wrong circumstances, could eventually become the next commander. Someone standing right at the edge. Ji-hun has always feared losing his humanity. The frontman saw that. He saw vulnerability, but also possibility. That psychological layer is one of the most well-crafted aspects of the script. Then comes the tease of the American spin-off, almost like a signal that this universe is far from over. The rumors involving names like David Fincher and Dennis Kelly, and even Kate Blanchett appearing in Los Angeles playing Dokji, make it clear that the expansion is serious. This isn't a small or improvised project. The idea seems to be keeping the same disturbing tone and brutality, but adapting it to the American landscape. In the right hands, it could become something even more unsettling. Netflix is unlikely to let this universe go anytime soon. It's already been suggested that Ji-hun's journey has ended, but there are still many open doors: the frontman's past, the origin of the VIPs, the inner workings of the guards, the unresolved storyline of the cop, and even potential side stories centered on secondary characters. There's no shortage of material. The issue is that expanding the universe doesn't erase the feeling this ending left behind. There's still a lot to explore, but trust is hard to rebuild after a finale that promised catharsis and delivered fragments. The real question is whether the next chapters will deepen the loose threads or simply scale up the spectacle. Because after all of this, the question isn't just whether the universe continues. It's whether it still has something meaningful to say, or if it's going to survive purely on its own brutality. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to leave a like. It really helps the channel. And before you go, click on the video that's on your screen right now. I'm sure you're going to enjoy that one too. See you there.